The following is an explicit episode. Listener discretion is advised.
2, live from Stevens Point, Wisconsin, Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, and somewhere floating down the Fox River, you mothers. It's the GamerHeads podcast, and now here's one of your hosts.
Hey, it's Roger. Welcome to episode number 46 of GamerHeads. We have an exciting show. We have our guest here from the Video Game Outsiders. We also have Ben and Christian as our co-hosts from GamerHeads, and Christian is brand new to the podcast, so welcome, Christian.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be part of
Where did you find Christian? How did you find him? Christian mingled or?
That's a good one.
Actually, he started working with me, 3 weeks ago, Christian? 4 weeks ago?
Yeah, roughly 3 or 4 weeks ago, yeah.
And then it turns out that he does podcasting as well. He's
now
actually...
you guys are in the Wisconsin area, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, Ben isn't, but we are.
No. Yeah. Because you're up in because I used my parents used to have, or my family used to have a little summer home in Princeton up there by you guys.
Oh, really?
It's not too far, right?
Yeah, not too far.
Ripon and Berlin and all that.
Yeah,
I lived in Brookfield for like 8 years.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't know
in between living on both coasts. Yeah, I had a boyfriend out there for a while, so we were living in Brookfield. But Wisconsin had really good food. That's what I'll always remember about it.
Supper clubs.
Yes, supper club.
Butter burgers and custard.
Yeah, hey there.
A couple, 2-3 times, don't you know?
Yeah, don't you know? It was such a culture shock for me coming from Connecticut to Wisconsin. I went into a Cop's and I heard somebody in the bathroom going, "Don't you know?" And I was like, okay, where the fuck am I? They're all wearing white paper hats. It was like 1950. You know, I'm an East Coast girl. I was in culture shock, but it's still a nice place.
Yeah. The thing that always makes me laugh is when you hear "don't you know" or the "inso." They always end their sentences with "inso." Inso, yep. What?
Or yet. I never got yet.
Oh, I do that all the time.
Are you there yet? Hey, come here once. Let me show you something once.
Yeah, Ben's from Wisconsin, but he has moved out to Oregon, right, Ben? Is that where you live now?
Washington.
Oh, Washington. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Same. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, welcome. So our guests are John and Michelle from the Video Game Outsiders podcast. And I am super excited to have them on our podcast.
Thank you.
I'm a huge fan of your show, so yeah,
thanks.
It's a real honor to have you guys on. So why don't you go ahead and tell our listeners a little bit about your podcast and a little bit about yourselves?
Well, we are pretty much everywhere podcasts are, but we're also on the Riotcast Network, which is a comedy network. So Jim Norton, Robert Kelly are there. We're also on Dash Radio just recently. We partnered up with them, so we're in all GM cars. But we're a podcast that's sort of all about going off topic a bit too, right, John? We aren't typical, like we don't stay formal, we don't plan anything, and we just sort of ramble, I guess.
We do ramble.
Yes.
But we've been doing the podcast since like 2004 or 5-ish.
Yep.
So we were one of the first kind of video game podcasts, really. I mean, it was kind of in the beginning there when podcasts were starting.
Yep.
With like Legal Report and Twit and all that, and we've been doing it ever since, and it's a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun.
Yeah, we do. It's real. I mean, we have our good and bad episodes, but it's always real. Like I said, we're just kind of going with the flow.
Yeah, that's what I love about your podcast is because you guys are real. You don't pretend to be something that you're not. So.
No, that's why I asked you at the start of the show. I was like, can we swear here? It may happen. So apologies in advance if you're listening.
Right.
You don't want to hear it.
That's fine. And then what got you into video game podcasting? Because you could have done anything. Why video games?
Well, that's our passion.
Yeah,
I mean, that's it.
Yeah, I mean, it's always been a huge part of my life. Like I've talked about before on my show, my dad got my sister and I involved in PC gaming and Atari and Nintendo very early when I was like 5 years old. And I've always gamed like throughout my whole life. So it was just a natural fit, I think, for me.
Yeah, me too. I mean, my first game system was Pong. So I've been doing this since the beginning. And so when the whole podcasting thing started, I'm like, yeah, I want to do a video game podcast because that's what I'm into, you know, and here we are.
Nice. And cool. John, I actually won one of your giveaways. So I have.
Oh, you did?
I did. So I have actually one of your trading cards.
Oh, nice. I'm surprised he sent it out. He often doesn't send things out to our winners.
Oh, shut up. Yeah, we've been giving away actually a lot of, because Michelle has a Walter Day trading card too. So we've been doing a lot of those giveaways lately on our Twitch stream at twitch.tv/John and Michelle, and also on our podcast too.
Nice.
Yep.
Nice. Well, welcome. I'm really glad to have you guys on the show.
Thank you.
So before we get into our hot topic, we do have some news flash items, and
The GamerHeads News Flash.
so just like any week before this, I'll go through the news, and if you guys have anything else, please go ahead and add to what I have here. So the first item that I have here is that Nintendo takes legal action against 2 Arizona-based ROM websites. Nintendo has reportedly filed a lawsuit at a federal court, and they're calling out the websites loveroms.com and loveretro.co for unfair competition, and they're requesting damages per infringement of $150,000 and then up to $2 million for trademark infringements, which could add up to theoretically $100 million.
Wow. That's crazy.
What?
So they're also asking for the sources where these ROMs are coming from, and then also the sites to be turned over to Nintendo. So I guess my question is, why now? Why is Nintendo doing this now?
But you know what? This has been going on for a while, though. Because it used to be you can go to like Cool ROMs and all these other ROM websites, and you used to be able to get all these Nintendo ROMs. And I know this because like with arcade games, if I need to get the ROMs and burn new chips, for the hardware, it used to be I can go to these websites and get the ROMs, because the ROMs are really just, they're dumps right from the hardware. It's not like some magical thing, right? And so if I have an old Donkey Kong board, whatever, and the EEPROM, the physical EEPROM is bad, I need to get the software and reburn it. Yeah. And that stuff started vanishing off these websites a few years ago. And then every now and then I would dabble in like NES emulators or something on Twitch, and that stuff all vanished too. So it got a little trickier to find this stuff. So Nintendo's been doing this all along the last few years, but this is the first time it seems like they've actually taken like a monetary legal, direction with it. But you have to admit, I mean, they want to own this. It's their IP. They want to sell it on the Switch. I know Michelle would disagree with me, but at the end of the day,
I don't know. I agree it's theirs, but
I know that you like the emulation thing, and I think it's important from a history standpoint. Because like if you go to archive.org,
there's a certain statute of limitations here. You can't keep selling someone the same game 500 times when they've already purchased it. That's my problem.
I know. I mean, Nintendo,
so if I've already purchased the game, I should have a right to access it.
They have the right to do that. Well, yeah, okay.
Sure,
so
I have the right to take it.
So for me, I'm trying to fix my hardware that I own. I own the hardware, right? Yeah. And I need the code to fix it, and I can't find it easily anymore. So that does become a bit of a problem when you're trying to preserve history. But the problem is Nintendo keeps going back to the well and reselling this shit over and over again.
Yes.
Yeah, and I mean I guess I didn't think of it from your perspective, John. I was just thinking, why doesn't Nintendo offer this stuff up then on the Switch? I mean, right now, didn't Nintendo just come out and say we're not going to have like a virtual console? Like,
no, they're doing it differently though. They're going to have the NES thing, but they're kind of modernizing it a little bit with like online shit. But it's still that old code that's tweaked,
If they do the virtual console, though, then they can't sell you the game 500 times, because what happens then is it gets linked to your account, and then it ends up with something like Microsoft, or Steam, where you're always going to be able to take this game forward. They want you to be sort of hardware locked to whatever their most recent console is. They don't want you to be able to take that game with you. I mean, look at John. You've purchased games twice now, multiple times for the Wii U and the Switch. That just wouldn't happen on Steam, or it wouldn't happen with even Microsoft. So this is what Nintendo does to make money. I don't think they care about their consumer. They care about the bottom line.
That's not what they're saying they're going to do, though, because that new subscription service will include all that retro shit.
Yeah, but you have to subscribe to get it. So what happens, and will you be able to access that? So they keep rebooting their subscription service or their like logins every time there's a new console. I mean, it was a mess.
They do, yeah.
Yeah, so if there's a Switch 2.0 or they call it something else, whatever, you're going to have probably another login account with a whole new library of games. They don't want you to bring your library of games forward, and that's what I think is dangerous.
That's lame.
But they did let you do that with the DS and all that shit. Like, if you got a new DS, you could move all that shit to like the 3DS or whatever.
But even between the Wii and the Wii U, I'm talking about their consoles, not their handhelds, really.
Yeah.
There's been nothing like that to bring your games forward, and I think that's they have to get with the times.
Do you really think
times
this
are
was
pretty new? Go ahead.
Just the next target that came through Nintendo's crosshairs? I mean, I've never heard of these ROM websites before.
I mean, I think that it's probably been a thorn in their side, knowing that shit's like. I mean, we even talk about it on VGO. It's like, you know, why do you want to play whatever on the Switch when you can just load up MAME or an NES emulator and do the same thing?
I think it's become more and more popular. Obviously, technology is advancing. It's easy now. Kids these days obviously have way more knowledge than they may have 20 years ago. So it's I think more people are probably using emulators now.
Yeah, agreed.
I think so too. And all these emulators now you can install on your phone and everything. I mean, if you're on Android, that's easy
Exactly.
to do.
I think it's probably, like you said, the technology, the advancement of phones, which has probably driven a lot of this.
But at the end of the day, these are old shitty games that are really just part of history, nothing more. I think, you know, I know that we've had guests like recently on VGO saying...
Says the guy who has 50 arcades in his basement, mind you.
I know. I know. But the thing is, though, I don't really find myself playing these old games like this. But again, we had that guest on a couple weeks ago who didn't experience this stuff when it came out, and to him, it's magical. So maybe there is an audience.
People are they're 20 years old and they didn't play these, like you say. So it's not nostalgia; it's new to them. And you know, I don't know. I grew up playing like shitty computer games, but I don't want to go back and do them right now. I want something new. So I don't. To me, I don't see the emulation thing as a threat, but perhaps it really is eating into their bottom line.
Well, the interesting thing is that they're citing unfair competition when probably like 90% of these ROMs are something that Nintendo is never going to charge anyone for or put on the Switch in any fashion.
Right. And it probably is a bunch of stuff they don't even own anyway, right? Because they didn't publish every game on the system.
Yep.
But because it seems to be a blanket like withdrawal of all of the games on the NES and SNES and all that. So that means stuff they don't even own. But what I was going to say, though, this could be foreshadowing, though, for a bigger plan where they're going to have the subscription model, you know, and they have like the whole catalog on the Switch, you know.
Maybe.
That's what I'm hoping.
That'd be nice.
Are they just going to keep suing people over and over?
Give people a legal way to acquire your games, and they'll generally do it. They haven't given people that.
Well, maybe that's what's going to happen here. I don't know.
Or maybe Nintendo just don't, you know, they're pricks. I think that's
I mean, it would be a really simple thing to do. I mean,
it would,
and it would save everybody a headache.
Right. They've never done it right. They've always just dabbled in the back catalog and have never done it right, really.
Yeah, because when they like introduce games again too, they charge a lot for them. Like if you go on Steam and look at the Dreamcast collection or some of the other things that they have there, Sega, like you can get games for 99 cents. Nintendo would probably release these old games and charge $20 for them or something.
See, that's ridiculous.
No, they generally charge I think around $6 a game or something like that.
Okay, well $6 I guess
it's still a lot. It's still a lot though.
It is.
Especially if you want to dabble in the whole library and just kind of get a feel for...
I would rather just get like 100 games for $60 or something. I'd feel good about that because that's what you can do with the other, you know, systems.
Well, I guess the other thing to bring up here too, though, is the NES Classic and the SNES Classic.
Yes.
Because those do compete directly with that head to head. And the RetroPie shit.
And there's people paying $300 for those when they said they were never making them again, and then they did.
But you've got people making RetroPies that are basically
the same thing.
The same thing as NES Classic, but with way more games.
Yeah.
Yep.
And people are also hacking the NES Classic to put unlimited games on them. So if people hack an NES Classic, then they need to go get the ROMs, don't they?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's probably all connected somehow.
Yeah. And I will say,
Nintendo.
I mean, they have a right to do it. I just think that they're here because of their choices in the past, not making these games available or trying to say they're only available for a limited time in this $60 box of plastic. You know, they didn't make them available properly.
Yeah. And now, I mean, I was just at Target and Walmart, and they have tons of them. I mean, just like...
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
I do think they were surprised by the success of that thing. I don't think anyone knew that was going to be a hit.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah,
I mean, just based on, I got the NES Classic on release day at Target. There was nobody in fucking line.
Yeah.
And then and then 2 days later, they're on Craigslist for $500 and all these news articles about it. It blew up literally.
That's crazy.
Within 48 hours, you know.
Yeah.
No one knew it was going to be what it became.
John, do you play your NES Classic often?
No, only for streams and
Yeah.
like I basically bought it so I could cover it and stream it, but I've never actually played it unless I've been streaming. Like I've never like just did it for myself casually.
Yeah, that's how I am with my Super NES Classic too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The next item here, I know you guys covered this as well, but Nathan Fillion made a fan film of Uncharted, and it's on YouTube. Has anyone seen that?
I've seen it, yes.
I haven't seen it, no.
Is it good? Because I didn't watch it yet.
It is really good.
Is this a news story? What is going on here?
Yeah, we talked about this, John. If you mentioned it. If you pay attention to our show, John, I don't know.
It is good. It's really funny, and yeah.
It's funny. Is it a spoof or what is it?
No,
is it
I mean,
a joke?
no,
It's a put on. No,
it's real. I mean, yeah, I mean he does a really good job as Nathan Drake. I mean, really good. But then he does his, the humor, right? The slapstick humor kind of stuff.
Right.
So
Quippy.
yeah, it's good.
How long is it?
It's like 15 minutes.
15 minutes.
Yeah, I'm watching it. It looks like it's done pretty well, actually. Shot pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah, the production values are pretty impressive.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, who's Nathan Fillion? That guy's very familiar.
He was in Firefly. He was in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. What was the other one the
Castle?
Castle? Thank you.
Yeah.
That's right, Firefly. He was the lead on that.
Yeah. He was Captain Hammer.
Nice. What I liked about the Uncharted fan film is that they actually understand what makes Uncharted Uncharted.
Yeah.
Because you've got like this combat sequence, and then they do this doofy stuff where like the camera pans behind them, like you're playing the game. That's okay. That's probably where I draw the line, because you gotta either make a movie or make a video game at that point. So I'm not sure if this could be extended to a full-length film.
Well, is that why they did it though? As just to kind of, because obviously this is an established actor that's in here, so this is interesting. Who funded this?
I think they
That's
did.
a good question.
I think I think they just paid for it out of their own pocket. So.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, I don't.
So yeah, it's like a set piece that's basically pulled right out of an Uncharted game, pretty much.
Yeah, but I don't know if they were trying to say, "Hey, let's make a full-length movie."
No.
I think they were just trying to say, "Hey, people
Here's
want
the
this."
possible
Yeah,
back
exactly.
this.
Exactly.
Yeah, what makes my
has
mind
us all
there is
talking
just that.
about Uncharted again. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it has us all talking about Uncharted again. I think that this is what people are doing these days to get topics, written about, and it's probably good for the actor. So, I mean, we're all talking about Nathan and Uncharted and wanting to watch this. Now I'm kind of thinking about, do I want to go back and play the old game? So it kind of works in their advance.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. I was like, "Oh, I should sit down and play the old games again."
Yeah.
Yeah, I should play the new ones too.
Oh my God. You should play any of them, John.
The last item that I have here is that Sony removes the $5 requirement from the PlayStation Store. So prior to this, if you wanted to buy something that was less than $5, you had to at least add $5 to your wallet, but now they took that away, which, I don't know, it's whatever. I mean, it's
That
not
seems
the big
good.
thing.
There's a donut shop around me that does that, and I don't like it. It's like,
Oh, really?
Right.
Oh,
yeah. Like you can't you charge on your credit card without $5, so I'm like having to
Yeah,
bring
I think
home
that's
more
fucking
donuts.
illegal, by the way.
Yeah.
I think it is.
Well, because there's a credit card fee, that's why.
Well, like Nintendo does something goofy like this too, but they don't force you though. They give you the option, like say I buy something for $4.
Yeah.
It says, do you want to add $10 to your account or only charge the amount of the game?
Yeah.
And I'm always like, what is the point? Why would I want to do that? Yeah, charge only the amount of the game. Why are you giving me the
It's
option?
free money, yeah.
Yeah, I know. I noticed that too, and it's not like really visible. I mean, you kind of have to, like, the first options are like, you want to add 10, you want to add 20, you want to add 50.
Right.
No, I don't want to add any of that.
Or only add the exact amount you need for this transaction. It's like going to the grocery store. It's like, all right, give me $20. You have a credit here next time you come over.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
It's stupid.
yeah. It's not like a bar where I might have like a tab, right?
Yeah.
That's all the news that I really had. Does anyone else have anything else that they wanted to discuss?
I didn't do any homework,
Oh
Roger.
my
I'm
gosh.
sorry.
Ben, you are fired.
This is a great
I'm
podcast.
sorry.
What about the new guy, Christian? Did you find anything?
Yeah,
Oh,
Christian.
man. There's so many. There's
you gotta pull your weight, dude. You're brand new. Come on,
here.
right? I'm slacking. I'm the anchor that's holding this podcast back.
Yeah.
Back.
The PlayStation 4 Pro for Spider-Man looks awesome. They made a good-looking PS4 Pro. How crazy is that?
You can't buy it.
Yeah. I guess not.
What do you think about Sony doing all these special editions, though, for games? Like, we don't see that as often for Microsoft, do we?
No, we
'Cause
don't.
we have the God of War one.
Yeah.
But
Back for
I guess they sell well, because like everybody wanted the Star Wars one.
back on the 360, you had the C3PO R2D2 thing for Connect Star Wars. That was awesome.
Yeah, everybody went and bought that right away.
That's right.
Yep.
That was
So I know, Michelle, we're going to get into this on VGO, but the whole Amazon, because that Spider-Man one you really can't buy on Amazon right now.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
You got to pre-order it.
You can't pre-order it.
Yeah.
Probably sold out. I don't believe there's this hate thing going on back and forth like CC Games is trying to sell, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, we'll get into it.
We'll get into it.
So I mean, I guess when they do these limited editions, obviously it's a small audience, right? Because it's only for people who don't have the system yet, right? People aren't they're not buying multiple systems so they can have all the editions.
Some people might. I think I knew somebody who bought the Star Wars one and sold the other one. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Really? Would you guys do that?
No.
I wouldn't, but I know there are people who would.
But, I mean, there's people that are collectors, John. Look at you. Like I said, you're a collector. Right. So people do that. I mean, if
you need
they're
to have every version of the.
Well, they sell the old one.
Yeah.
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 But I mean, when the God of War one came out, that definitely did push me though to get a Pro finally.
Yep. Exactly.
Well, that I can see though. I mean, right? Because like I don't have a Pro yet, so I can see where maybe that might push me to get one. But I wouldn't keep both of them. I'd just get rid of my older one.
Right.
I already had a Pro, but I ended up giving it to my sister and just getting that God of War one because I knew that was going to be a game that I was not going to want to share with her. And it ended up being right because I played that game like nonstop for 2 weeks. And now I'm so happy I have the special edition because I remember that time. And I feel like, this game was special to me and now I have this. So I think that more people buy them than you might think.
Well, Nintendo does that too, though. Nintendo has all those... Yeah, all the Nintendo, the 2DS. Yeah, exactly.
Yep. They haven't done it with the Switch yet, and I'm waiting for that.
Yeah, they came out with the skins that you can put on the Switch.
Right.
But
my Wii U is like the Wind Waker edition. It's all Zelda'd out.
I like editions. I think that's good. I mean, even John, you have the Xbox One X Scorpio edition, right? And you were sort of let down with the fact that there was nothing different about it except it said Scorpio and like Comic Sans on the back.
And it's like ultra tiny too. You have to you have to get up really close to it and like, oh, I see the text.
Yeah, that was a letdown.
Same with the controller.
Yeah.
Oh, that is kind of a letdown.
Yeah, totally.
Special.
But I would imagine Nintendo is got to be thinking of some kind of Switch to come out with.
Yeah.
That's deluxe.
For sure.
Or a Pro version of the Switch. Dun dun dun.
That's what I would like to see.
Yeah.
Wow, that would be. Ooh.
Ben,
but I don't know what that could be though. I mean,
that's what I'm saying. Like, what would you do? Well, I mean, what would be the?
Well, I guess the thing you could do is that you could make it as powerful in handheld mode as dock mode.
Or it would be a 4K HDR just like the PS4 Pro, which isn't really, it's sort of fake, or the Xbox One X. I mean, it would compete with those because a lot of people are playing games that they've never played before, like all the Bethesda games on the Switch, and they're looking at them and they look like crap. Like some people who have the Switch and only the Switch, I'm sure would love to be able to see them properly on their TV or something.
Yeah.
Sure.
I'd like to see some special Joy-Cons.
Yeah.
Make a Joy-Con with a D-pad, please.
Right, that's true.
Yeah, there's third-party ones that you can get.
Yeah.
I thought the Pro controller was sort of also pretty expensive to have to buy separately, too, when I did all that. Like, it should have maybe come with a real controller, but that's just me.
Yeah.
Ben, you just got your Switch. Why do you want a new one right away?
Because. Why wouldn't I? I'm a consumer.
Oh, okay.
You're not allowed to do that unless you own all of the other systems and a PC. Because you don't want... Not yet. Save it. You're doing a gaming podcast, right? I mean, do you guys try to be very well-rounded? That's what we try to do, and it gets tough sometimes. How do you, what sort of stuff do you cover? Like everything?
Yeah, we try to. I mean...
It's hard because gaming is everywhere.
Yeah. I have at home, I do have a 3DS, a DS, a Game Boy Advance, And then I have my PS4, my Xbox One, my PS3, my Wii, my Xbox 360, and then I have the Switch, and then I have, whatever. I don't know, a bunch of other stuff.
Okay. Just everything.
Yeah, but
I can't focus I can't focus on multiple systems. Like if I get into a game, it's like I have to finish it. And I can't just go back, and a lot of people can do that. Maybe it's my ADD, but I cannot do like, I'm going to play God of War, and then I'm going to go play, an old school PS2 game. I just can't do that. I got to focus on what I'm playing on and finish it.
Yeah, that's not me.
Can't do it.
You're balancing each other out.
Yeah. I think I take more of the approach that John does. I pick up a game and I play it for a couple hours. I'm like, okay, that was cool. Next game.
Yeah. Well, doing the podcast for so long kind of does that to you, though, too. Because it's like you're trying to play everything that comes out.
Yeah, but you also want to sit down once in a while and pass a game. And I can't think of a game John has passed in the last 20 years, but we're not going to get into this debate again. Like, you couldn't even pass Detroit, a game you claim to love.
I do love it. I will pass that. I'm
sure you will. Okay. We do a lot of fighting on our show, if you haven't realized.
That's all I have for news. Does anybody have anything else? All right.
No.
So then let's do this. Let's take a break, and then when we come back, we'll get into our hot topic. So stay tuned.
Sounds good.
Hello, this is Meg Stuyvesant from Small Monsters Games. Our newest card game is Takeout, a social set-building game for 2 to 4 players. In Takeout, players are backpackers traveling in China and trying to order delicious Chinese food. Unfortunately, none of you speak Chinese. The object of the game is to get one dish of each flavor, sweet, sour, salty, spicy, and bitter, and a cold drink into your meal, before any of your friends do. To win, use your superior chopstick skills to steal tasty food from someone else's plate, or use a Mandarin English phrasebook to attack your friends. This game was inspired by my years living and working in China. Takeout was a tabletop showcase selection at last year's Boston Festival of Indie Games. You can check out our website, smallmonstersgames.com, or follow us on Twitter at @small_monsters for more. Thank you.
Have you ever been reading through a stack of comics and thought, hey, maybe I should see what this Arkham Asylum game is all about? Or been playing Marvel vs. Capcom and felt like you were at a real disadvantage because you didn't know who half the characters were? Well, Play Comics is the show for you. I'm Chris, and each episode, I take a look at video games based on comic book properties and how well they stick to that source material. So, whether you know the comics and want to actually learn how these games work, or know the games and want to know what the hell is going on, go check out Play Comics at playcomics.com, the Brain Trust Bros Network, or wherever you find your favorite podcasts.
Hey, it's Carrington from Real Dudes Podcast, and with me I have some fantastic co-hosts. Guys, why don't you introduce yourselves?
This is Andrew, coming to you from Lynchburg, Ohio.
This is Cody, coming from you also from Ohio.
And this is Kyle, coming to you straight from the armpits of West Virginia. We are an indie gaming podcast. We all share a love for games, and you can check out our show on Podbean. Just search for Real Dudes Podcast. You can also find us on iTunes, Google Play, really any of the podcasting outlets that you like to use. Again, that is Real Dudes Podcast. Be sure to check us out on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. If you love video games, you will love our show.
What's up, everybody? I'm Tyler.
I'm Lucas. And I'm Chris.
And we're better than Static. We meet up once a week and talk about movies, comics, and video games.
I don't want to talk about that.
Why are you complaining about all the topics I bring up? I'm trying to sound professional, Chris.
But we're not that good.
We are too good.
We may not be great, but we are better than Static.
You guys can hit up iTunes, Podbean, Google Play, and YouTube to check us out.
Remember that feeling of playing an ultra-hard video game and dying? Over and over and over? Ah! Yeah, so do we. Listen to the Controller Throwers podcast on iTunes and Google Play. And check out the live show every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time at twitch.tv/TCThrowers. The Controller Throwers, pressing start since 1985.
Do you like video games? Do you like to read? Alright, guys, I know that those two things usually don't go so well together, but my new book, The Minds Behind the Games, Interviews with Cult and Classic Video Game Developers, is kind of like an ESPN 30 for 30 collection of interviews with some of the coolest creators in video game history. We're talking iconic games, Deus Ex, Mortal Kombat, Wasteland, NBA Jam, not so iconic, E.T., Night Trap, indie games, Pro Wrestling X, Towerfall. If you love video games, you will love my book. If you know nothing about video games and want to get in the know, read my book. It's available wherever fine books are sold: Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target, Walmart, and of course my site, patrickhickeyjr.com. It's an awesome book. I had a ton of fun writing it, and simply put, if you want to get in the know and you want to find out stuff that's not even on Wikipedia, check it out. You won't regret it.
All right, welcome back to GamerHeads, and today's hot topic is why are game companies afraid of politics in their games? So this actually came from an article on Polygon. The article goes on to state that the social issues are profitable, but they are afraid to talk about the politics. And then they give some examples of like Deus Ex, Mankind Divided. The publisher said it has nothing to do with racial divisions in the world. Far Cry 5, where Ubisoft refuses to draw comparisons in the game to real-life issues. And then Detroit Become Human, where they talk about how it's not anything to do with social injustice or domestic abuse. So they go on and say how game companies are afraid to deal with the politics, and movies and other, art aspects are not afraid, and why games are afraid to deal with that. So that's what I want to talk about today.
Okay.
Why are they afraid, and is it a big deal?
Well, what do you guys think of this?
Well, my first thought is, I don't know why they have to come out and say, "Yep, this is a game about racial divisions," and they don't have to come over and hit us over the head with that. That's like, that would be so dumb. We're not stupid gamers. Like, we can take whatever we want out of a game. So yeah. if they come out and say like for instance, my wife works at a theater, a Shakespearean theater. And like, I walk away from those plays, like Shakespeare doesn't come out and say, this play is about, social injustice and you should pay attention to it. Like, I get it. I don't have to
It's supposed to mean something different to everybody who watches it. That's the exact definition of a good narrative. And so, there was an article that just came out recently. Todd Howard was talking about how Skyrim isn't just a dragon-killing power fantasy. It actually has a little bit of a political edge. It's about sort of nationalism versus, the whole world. And I thought that was great. Those are the sort of politics you do want in games, because maybe it means that to somebody, but to somebody else, it means that it's a dragon-killing power fantasy. Like, if you have to beat somebody over the head with a narrative, it's a bad narrative. And what they're really saying is, it's not just that they want politics in games, it's that they want their politics in games.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
their narrative, exactly.
Yes, and that's where I think it becomes a problem. I mean, when you have people upset about the fact that Far Cry didn't tackle the gun issue in America, and if you're really looking to Far Cry, I taled about this on our show.
They said that before the game even came out.
If you're looking for Far Cry for political cues, I think you're a deranged person. And so, and where is the proof that it's profitable? That was one of the bullet points. I don't think there's any proof it's profitable.
No.
There's proof that Polygon and Kotaku like to say it is, but if you look at Wolfenstein 2, it sold half as well as Wolfenstein 1, I think, and that was because probably a lot to do with their ads, so much for the tolerant left ads and all. It was nothing to do with killing Nazis. We've always killed Nazis. We love that in Wolfenstein games, but they tried to push a political narrative, and it was a real big misstep. It was alienating. So first of all, I don't think they're afraid of it. I think they're doing it just in good ways, but I think they're afraid to spell out political stuff because nobody wants that. Who wants that?
It's just storytelling, though. That's all it is.
But they're acting like the gamers actually want politics in their games like that. We don't. And the gamers I've talked to over the past 12, 13 years of doing a gaming podcast don't want politics in their games like that.
But what's happening to me, what I see is Polygon is creating the situation. They're trying to create the news, essentially, right?
Yeah.
Because the Far Cry stuff was so stupid, with the cults and all this, and people were bitching because the cults were,
Who was really bitching? I'm convinced it's the same 5,000 people on Twitter and the people that write for these blogs. Honestly, gamers aren't bitching.
But Far Cry to me seems so black and white. It's like, okay, we want to have this like wilderness, wonderland where this open world game could take place, right? And what kind of batshit crazy stuff can happen here?
Far Cry is like one of the goofiest, most insane games we've ever played. Like we really wanted to sit us down and say, listen, guns are a problem in America. Like what?
Right.
That would really take me out. Let's not even forget the big thing, immersion and escapism. Like we don't want that.
Right. So let me ask you this, just to be devil's advocate, because I agree with everything you're saying, but let me ask you this: as if I'm a company and I know I'm releasing a game that's going to get some people, the loud minority people, the loud people that the SJW types, I know that they're going to be mad about this game. Is this a way of them kind of easing that crowd?
Well,
just
yeah, because
being proactive and not being defensive about it, being proactive.
The problem is these people are going to find that issue in every game and anything. Okay, so but this was my concern too. This was one of my tweets. It was very popular and it got a lot of likes from people that I didn't even know. And I was saying that Polygon had an article about Far Cry saying that it was bad because it didn't take a stance on American politics and gun control. And I said the day video game story arcs have to get political to garner favorable reviews is a very sad one indeed. And that's the problem. So you have sites bashing them, giving them low scores.
Right.
Detroit,
That's what happened to Detroit.
That's what I'm talking about.
And so now game developers feel this pressure to please them while also pleasing the people who are actually buying the games. And so they're trying to walk both lines. And I just feel like blogs and social media have ruined it for gamers and actual game devs now. It's a big problem. They have meetings where they sit down and say, how can we, appease these people? And
that's
so it's
crazy.
Like,
that's
it's
just
nuts.
crazy to me.
I know.
But that's what's happening. And this crappy games journalism is making the developers rethink their art form,
Yes, exactly.
And the thing is that Detroit game to me also seems very black and white. I mean, it's telling the story about what would happen if androids took over our life, right? And became just part of society.
They kept wanting to focus on the main character as being a black man. He wasn't. He was an android. And it was just like I said on my show, like a black coat of paint on a car. If you're selectively picking that up, then I think you're the racist. They're looking
like
for
an avatar that someone picked,
yes.
right?
And
let me ask you, Leah, can I ask you? I'm sorry to interrupt, but you guys have been doing this for a while. So what changes have you seen in podcasts? Is it like completely different than what it used to be when you first started?
Yes, it is. I think
just think back to go back to like the NES era or even the 2600. There's no story there because they couldn't tell a story with those shady graphics necessarily, right?
Right.
Especially the 2600. So now we're getting so close to movies, right? That this is kind of
I think if you look at the top 50 games of all time, or even of the last 10 years, can you name one that was overtly political, that was a popular game? There are none. There might be one like Skyrim where it was actually a good narrative. It was written into the game and you had to interpret it yourself. But there are none that are going to be flat out political that have ever been really huge. I don't think it's profitable. I don't think gamers want it. So yes,
do you think games, Michelle, right now are doing that more?
Yeah, I think they are. I think they're trying to walk both lines because they're trying to get,
I don't think they are though. Because do you think Detroit did that? I think the journalists tried to find it in Detroit.
Of course they did, and I mean that was made by French people, and they're asking them to make a comment about American politics or a certain period. We aren't the center of the universe too, which is another thing. I think the same thing with like Japanese developers. A lot of them like to make overly sexy women with the high heels, like Nier Automata, and they came down on that, saying it was sexist. And it's like, well, this is his vision, this is his culture, this is what he wants to express, and why are we picking it apart and saying that it's taboo? So I think that we want to judge everything and look at it through our lens, and that's just not the case. Like gaming is global.
Yeah.
I find it interesting that you guys talked a lot about Far Cry 5 because that's a game that I'm currently playing. I just started last week and I'm a couple dozen hours into it. And it's really fascinating because, when the game was first coming out, it was really controversial because it seemed like they wanted to kind of piggyback off of this kind of political rage.
But how did it seem that way, though?
Because of the artwork. Because of the artwork, the American flag.
An American flag means all of a sudden now that you're making fun of Nazis? It doesn't, though. It's just the flag of our country. That's what I think. I think it seemed that way because people were looking for it and they started to write articles about it.
That image was so strong. That kind of Last Supper thing with the guns and the flag and.
But the Last Supper thing was just because it's like it has a religious tinge, which if you look, a lot of cults do. So I think that it's sort of based on the history of actual cults. And I mean, we watched that Wild Wild Country thing, and there were a lot of things that fell in line with what happened there with what was
and
going
it was
on.
also
Far Cry.
diverse.
Yeah, they were drugging people. Of course, cults aren't picky. I mean, there was an article where people upset about the fact that there were women and minorities in the cults. Have you guys ever researched cults? They'll take anybody. There's also people were mad that like a woman or a black guy was bad. Well, that can happen, Not every bad person is a white male.
I even read something. A guy said he was mad because there was too many black people in the game. Because in Montana, that's not the case.
What? Okay. So you can, no matter what you do, you're going to get picked on, I guess.
Right.
I think where I draw the line is that I don't like politics being used, like in the case of Wolfenstein 2, as an overt marketing tool, as something to try and sell a video game.
I think Wolfenstein, they did do it. They really did use
They
politics.
tried it with the marketing because, like I said, they had so much for the tolerant left in one of their ads, and it was like, why are you talking about left and right? Like, this is not what this is about. This has always been a
They
World
did
War
the whole
Nazi.
punch a Nazi thing,
Yeah,
right? So that's what they're doing, right?
Yeah, that was right.
But the games you're referencing in this Polygon article, I don't think they did it. I think the Polygon looked for it and tried to find it.
Right.
Yeah, and when I first saw this article, I actually misread it. I thought they were saying, why don't more games take on political issues? But that wasn't even their thing. They were saying, well, yeah, they want
them to own they want them to own the politics that they embedded in the game.
Yes.
They want to take over everything. They want. I mean, every TV show I watch now, social media, everything is infested with this left versus right. And you've got the extremes from both sides, and is there a place where we can play games where we don't have to be affected by these people's insanity? Because I think it's legit insane if you're looking for Far Cry for your political cues, and I think that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
It's a goofy open world game.
Exactly. Let it go. Doesn't mean it can't be a meaningful game, but if you wanted to spell out gun issues in America, I don't even think you should be playing video games. I think you should be at a psychologist's office because you're looking for your guidance in life in the wrong places.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny too because Christian and I both work in software development, and you don't just create a game in a couple of weeks. Obviously they've been working on this for years, right? It just happened to be oh, well, something happened and people are like, look, see, it's similar. And I don't think they made it that they're hey, we're gonna take all these issues now in society.
And the issue is, if you disagree with it at all of a sudden you're called alt-right. I had a listener write me and say, well, you're alt-right, you must like guns. I said, listen, look, I'm from Connecticut. I now live in California. I've never seen a gun in my life. I never want to see a gun in my life. I'm not even talking about my gun thoughts about real issues. I'm talking about in the game. When I'm shooting somebody in a game, there is no part of me that thinks about the real life connection to this. I think if you're doing that, you sound disturbed because I'm playing Far Cry and I'm not thinking about the gun issues in America at all. And I think that they have to let this go. Yeah. They're forcing it down our throats that we should be picking apart these games, looking at them under the lens of what's happening in reality. And I don't think we should.
Right. And the Division 1 too is just asinine.
Well, I'm wondering where you're going to go with that.
I know, but they're saying just because it takes place in Washington D.C., therefore it must have a political slant.
Well, everything.
Right?
Nowhere safe.
What is this? What is this?
Division 2.
Oh, okay. It takes the demo they showed. It was Air Force One was downed, and it was by the Capitol and stuff. And so therefore, because it's in Washington D.C. and Air Force One, it must have a political slant.
Well, in the
premise, why can't we just have games that take place at locales?
No locale is safe. Can you tell me where it's okay to make a game? Because The Witcher was bad because it was Polish folklore and there weren't enough, women or minorities in that one for their lives. So it's no, what can we do? What is okay? It's these people are eating themselves too. They're eating their own because nobody can be, virtuous enough at this point. There is no game that you can create that's going to be perfect enough. So I think it's a problem because this is the overall voice that we hear now at least in written form. I think that's why podcasts have sort of taken off. We aren't beholden to anybody. We can say what we want.
They're desperate. I think that this traditional media is very desperate and really
it's dying.
At this point, Polygon is traditional media.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I was talking to a friend because I knew we were going to talk about this, and he does a lot of online gaming and chat rooms and he brought up a very good point about politics and people talking about politics and chat rooms and all that stuff while they're gaming. And at first it bothered him. He's like, I come here to get away from all that stuff. I don't want to deal with it. But then he started talking to a person, I think in Florida, and they were conversing about the shooting there and what the news was what he was seeing out here. And he's like, nobody trusts the news. I mean, people trust the news now less than ever before. So he goes, I can go on a game and I can find out what's really happening to the people that are actually there.
Right.
Which
I go on Twitter.
Very, very cool. And I was like, I never thought of it that way.
Yes. If something is breaking, I usually go on Twitter and see what people are saying. And you'll find someone that's there that just took a photo or whatever,
And a lot of times they'll be like, why isn't the news talking about this?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you see enough people at the same place saying the same thing and it doesn't match the news, something's wrong, something's up.
But I just thought that was very interesting. I never thought of it that way. I mean, I never thought of it that way. But
we're more connected now than ever. We really are, and I think that's the problem too. Every idiot has a cell phone, and they're now connected to the internet. So we're having to hear the thoughts and the inner, dialogues of people that probably maybe aren't the most well-adjusted people. And when they all get together, it seems like they have, a leg to stand on. But I truly do not believe that the average gamer wants these politics in their games.
No.
They just don't. And so this whole idea that they're so profitable and this is what everybody wants, this is the narrative they're trying to sell because this is what drives their websites. They've got
they're saying the politics are there. You just need to own it. That's like the message I'm getting out of this Polygon article.
Mm-hmm.
Is that you guys are injecting politics, but you're denying it.
Not everybody is. I mean, there's different stories.
That's what the article is saying, though.
Yeah. I don't think Detroit was at all. I really don't. And I don't think Far Cry was.
I don't either, and I don't think Division's going to be either.
And even Deus Ex. I mean, so all those games. No. I mean, you like Michelle, you said, like you can tell a really good story, and you can get what you want out of that story. And if the narrative is like important, but the same thing, like I'll just relate it to like theater. Like you can go see a play.
Or books. I mean, this is
or book. Exactly.
I was just going to say that. Yeah.
I mean, you just put it down and you come back from it and you're like, oh, okay, like that's how I can relate to it, right? And like, but to say, oh, you're definitely talking about racism here, like that's just ridiculous.
The problem is, and I hate to use the term, but it does stem from identity politics, because what they're saying is unless you are this exact group of people or this person, then this is the only way you can relate to this, when in reality we're all humans and we can relate to other situations. I can relate to a problem John has with with his kids, even though I don't have children, because I think about myself as a kid, or maybe or just kids in general. So it doesn't mean I have to be a parent to be able to relate to him. So that they don't like the idea of it being open for interpretation, because they feel like, no, only this group of people can understand exactly what's happening here, when that's just not true. We can all empathize and understand and relate these situations to ourselves. We don't need them to spell it out for us. And I think it's going in a bad place. What has to happen is
back to what I was saying, though,
print
that the
media has
art
to die, and there's going to be a backlash at some point. But I think we're like 10 years from it. I think it's only going to get worse before it gets better.
Oh, it's going to get worse.
Way worse. Yeah.
But I think more and more people, though, are, especially millennials, they're not getting their news from Fox and CNN. They're going on Reddit, they're going on Facebook, Twitter, wherever it is, or YouTube videos. Yeah. That's where they're getting their news. And that's where gamers, I think...
But if your advertising gets stripped, if you talk about a taboo subject, then all of a sudden people aren't going to talk about it. We're getting to a dangerous point, like you said, even with Twitch, as it gets more popular.
Right.
They're going to have that same issue, too.
But
where's it
gamers
going to be safe to talk about?
They're getting their opinions and news, though, from YouTube and Twitch. Like Michelle, if you're thinking about buying a game, where do you go to figure out if you want it? On YouTube and Twitch, right?
I'll go to Steam reviews because I trust them.
Steam reviews.
Because Steam is one of the few companies that doesn't curate.
But it's the community, right? You're getting it not from someone that is a quote-unquote journalist, just a normal person.
Yes.
And enough normal people will kind of inform you.
Right.
Maybe, but I mean, people listen to our show and get game recommendations, so I can't say that everybody is just biased, but...
Right.
There's different ways to do it.
Yeah. We had an episode it was like a year ago now, but there was a professor that was teaching a course here on how the way you play video games determines what kind of person you are. And I argued that because the game is coded a certain way. So he's like, if you play like Call of Duty and you shoot somebody, might make you a bad person. Like, I can't just say, you know what, I'm absolving from the army, I'm walking away. That's not even an option in the game.
Right. That's not true, because I have a lot of gamers that are in real life that have been friends, and like some of the people that are like the biggest pricks online, like the biggest trolls, are like the nicest people in real life, and the opposite. because I'm kind of not that I'm a bitch, but I'm quick-witted. I bust balls a lot, all right. But in games, I'm very polite. I usually play a healer. I like helping people. That's not who I am in real life. I'm kind of sarcastic. So it goes both ways. Like, you can't say that just because someone is an asshole in games, maybe that's how they're blowing off steam.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, I know a lot of guys who are the nicest guys in the world in real life, but in games, you'd be like, wow, this guy's a douche. He's just killing everybody. He's trolling everybody. He just shot his teammates. Like, so you can't just judge people by how they're playing video games.
Yeah. And I think the same thing kind of ties with this topic too, right? That, you can't say like, oh, we should force politics on somebody and then they better understand it. Like, I just think that's just so bizarre. The thing that I kind of wanted to explore with this too is, so if these games, do have items of social social injustice or whatever, and it's not overtly, right? It's just part of the story. Do you think games can change people's perspectives through playing a game? Like, you can change probably somebody's perspective maybe from reading a book. Do you think that same thing can happen in a game?
Yeah. I think what I was trying to say earlier is that the art form is getting more advanced and we're closer to movies, and as technology advances and motion cap and voice acting, all that becomes more and more part of these games. I think that it's a very powerful art form, and so it's going to happen, and it's happening right now. So it's going to get amplified over time.
Right, but it would. Generally, though, if it is, I think that it would have to be a very specific game about a very specific topic. I think that, like I said,
it can be anything, though. There's no limit to what story a game can tell now, because we can tell it.
Right, of course. But I think that generally, like the big games, like I said, a game like Skyrim, when they talk about that actually being about nationalism versus like looking at your view of the world, nobody's going to leave from that game and really say, you know what?
Sure. The writer of that game might be a closet socialist or something, and you know what? The guy that wrote the book wrote a book in 1910 was a closet whatever Marxist or whatever.
I don't know. I think if they're hitting you over the head with political messages, it's probably not a good thing. I think it should be nuanced, and I think that that's where we have to be careful. But sure, I think they can impact you. I think anything can impact you. A conversation with a stranger can impact you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, one game that's impacted me in particular is one of my favorite games, Half-Life 2, because despite it having kind of political undertones, because the whole game takes place in this dystopian setting where there's this overbearing and controlling government force imposing on a society, while you're tasked with dismantling that powerful government power from like within, and it seems larger than life. But those dystopian future settings really click with me because I like how they take kind of like the frog in boiling water. They see kind of what's happening and then push it to 11, just push it all the way to the wall and see what happens.
Right.
So a game like Half-Life 2 really stuck with me because of that.
I don't think anything I've ever watched, like, in a movie or a video game has ever impacted me politically.
Yeah,
but I don't know. I wish maybe it would be a good thing if it did. Nothing has really moved me in that space, but I've definitely been impacted by games and really been into the stories. But I can't say I have a disconnect from them from real life. Like, I love Star Trek, okay, most of them, and I'm watching Voyager right now, and there's a lot of these tropes, which is why I thought it was interesting with Detroit Become Human. Like, this is what happens with sci-fi all the time. Like, they're basically saying aliens are way different than us. Right, so humans are more alike than we think, and that's been like told so many times. That's basically what I think they were trying to do with Detroit too. Like, look, all humans are the same, and these androids are the same, and look, we're really just all together. And then at some point, humans and androids will be the same, and then we're fighting against Mars. So it's like, this is a trope that's been told time and time again in sci-fi. But I've never once like watched Star Trek and tried to relate it to real life. I just don't do that. But some people are. But I think it's the people who are trying.
There's messages in there, though.
There's messages in there like we should all get along. I mean, it has a very
But writers
had that view.
But writers since the beginning of time have had an internal bias when they're writing, and so that stuff's always going to poke
But it should be okay to show whatever, both sides is what I'm saying, not just one side. And so when I like I said, at the end of the day, when they're saying we want politics in games, just keep in mind that they're saying very, very specific politics.
We want our politics, our beliefs, our agenda.
I think when a lot of this anger and outrage comes up, it's around big AAA games because they already know that these games are going to have an audience, so they feel like whatever agenda that game is pushing is going to convert all those people that play that game.
It's also very selective. It's like they write hit pieces on people. We were just talking about this. Cliffy B, they like to go after him. They made a big stink about the fact that you couldn't play a female character because it was still an alpha for his most recent Battle Royale game that bombed. But there's tons of games where you can't play female characters. But they continually had articles about Cliffy B and writing about him.
He's a dude bro.
Because he was a popular name, or he was a dude bro, as we say. And it's like, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. I think they just like to go after people. They want to go after the next person, take them down. Now we're going to move, and then both sides are doing this. But it's like, this is the culture we're in right now.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, wasn't there something too about the new Call of Duty having a woman as the main? Wasn't that a big
Battlefield 5? Yeah, we talked about that. That was a huge deal. It's more about the realism. It has nothing to do with them being women. I think people were talking about mostly, like, it's not a World War II game. Like, if you have women on the front lines with, like, mohawks and the aesthetics look insane, and I can understand that.
Yeah.
You know, you're not a terrible person. You're not a Nazi just because you prefer to watch Saving Private Ryan without half of the people storming the beaches of Normandy being female. That doesn't make you a Nazi. Enjoying your type of, entertainment feeling more realistic. Because I totally get that. I don't want Battlefield 5 to feel like Fortnite. With cosmetics and muskets and crazy shit. So I think that people are just judging people. Well, some of them had like a katana sword rather, and like some weird shit. I just feel like people are judging people so harshly just because they may have an opinion on a video game now. Like it's like all of a sudden, and so why do we want that shit in our
But the
game?
thing is, Battlefield is a perfect example here of design by committee, right? Yep. Which is what Polygon type articles is forcing developers to do. Right?
Nobody wants it, and I think it's gonna bomb.
Because you try to make everyone happy, you make no one happy, right? That's the saying, right? So it used to be where you had like a very small team with a very small vision, and they executed it, and if people like it, they like it. Now you have these big corporations putting millions of dollars behind a game, and everyone is sitting in a conference room with a whiteboard saying, how can we make this game appeal to everybody?
I think they're trying to sell cosmetics. That's why they went that way.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's even necessarily that. I think they're like, how can we make a lot of money like Fortnite? I know, let's be able to sell pink jackets and purple. They're selling hair colors and jackets and all this customization. So it's now not a realistic World War II game. It's now just like Fortnite 2.0 where we can sell cosmetics. That's what it's about, because the freemium model, even though it's not a free game, seems to you make more money if you're selling cosmetics these days.
Yeah. Yeah, or making Funko Pops off the characters.
Oh my God, enough with Funko Pops.
I hate that so much, I know.
Enough with them.
I know. I saw Fortnite actually is coming up with Funko Pops. I'm like, you're kidding me. Come on.
And they have a cereal coming too, Funko Pops.
Oh, come on. Really?
Yep, they do. Yep.
Cool. Well, thank you. I think that was a good topic. Listeners, if you have thoughts, you can go ahead and tweet us at GamerHeadsPC. You can email us at gamerheadspodcast@gmail.com, and you can reach us on Facebook at facebook.com/GamerHeadsPodcast. All right, before we go, then, let's go into what we've been playing. So we'll start with our guest, Michelle. What have you been playing?
I play a lot of stuff for the show, but I always keep going back to Rainbow Six Siege. So I like shooters. I played way too much of PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, so now I've been playing more Rainbow Six Siege. But I'm also really looking forward to World of Warcraft coming out in August, the latest expansion.
Nice. Yeah, and so you've been playing that on PC, you said? Is that right?
Yes, I generally PC game. I also have a PS4 Pro and an Xbox that I don't touch. I mean, because to me, everything is generally out for PC except for the exclusives, which is kind of why I had to get that PlayStation and play. Detroit, like I said, I loved God of War. That was probably my favorite game of, like I said, of the last 10 years. So I really enjoyed it.
Nice. Yeah, the last episode you guys talked about how like some of those old PC games are still doing really well on PC where they're not doing as well on consoles. I thought that was an interesting discussion.
Yeah, I mean, Twitch and esports is really driving PC stuff, as well. I mean, the people on Twitch are doing console stuff, but it's generally like very PC focused. And I think that we're starting to see a time when I think Xbox recognized that they were feeling a little threatened. So instead they're like, nope, we're joining up with them. Like everything we do on Xbox is now on PC. So PC I think is kind of, it's seeing like its second life right now, which is good for me because I like the freedom it gives me. I have an ultra wide 34-inch monitor. I like being able to play games, where they look really good. I don't really like crappy graphics, which is one of the reasons why when my Switch broke, I didn't replace it. And so I like technology, period.
Yeah. Nice. Cool. What about you, John? What have you been playing?
Since the last VGO, when we played Islands of Nine, that was...
I don't like that game. Just another Battle Royale game.
Oh. It is just another Battle Royale at the end of the day. I did try Vigor on Xbox One preview. I'll talk about that on VGO, but
it looks rough.
that's a game that's developed by DayZ and Arma guys, and for whatever reason, they're previewing it on Xbox right now.
Yeah.
And so if you're in the preview program, you could play that. And it's kind of, what was that game, Tarkov? Escape from Tarkov?
Escape from Tarkov, yeah.
It's kind of like that.
Meets Hunt meets
Yeah.
Battle.
It's an interesting game, though, because it's like, it's one of these games where you go into a live match, you're gathering resources, you're crafting guns and weapons and all that, and then you have to get out. And then if you get out, you take all that stuff with you, and then you go back to your little base, and you could start crafting more shit to go back in. Kind of like that Metal Gear Live game that came out.
Yeah.
It was a lot like that. So I played that over the weekend, and, my Switch on the deck is kind of a thing right now.
Yeah. And you've been playing Octopath Traveler too, right?
I have, yeah. I do like that game.
Yeah.
I do like it, yeah. I'm at a point right now, though, where I have to really grind like a mofo to advance, and the combat is starting to wear on me a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm about 4 hours in on that game.
Are you?
Yeah, so I picked up my third character. I picked up the Scholar. I started with Primrose, the dancer, so...
Okay, what does she do, by the way? I haven't met her yet.
John.
She does dance. I will say this: so I picked her because I thought her story was the most interesting. So her background is that her father was killed by these three guys with crows on her, tattoos on their arm, and she's hunting them down. And she ends up going to this this town, and she becomes a dancer to like basically look for them, right? To hopefully they come in as clientele.
It's her cover, yeah.
Yeah, it's
She's
her
like
cover.
a spy, yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, like the first thing they're like, "You whore," and I'm like, "Oh God, this is a Nintendo game? Oh God."
Well, she is a dancer. I mean, she
Yeah.
could have done it other ways.
Yeah.
But it's pretty smart though, because that's probably a good way to check out dudes' tattoos.
Yeah,
Because if you're a dancer, you can probably get away with anything.
Yeah. But she's kind of like the sorceress. I mean, she has like her thing is more magic like based. Her attacks are kind of weak, but her like abilities, I guess, are more like magic.
Right.
So
Sounds cool. I would like
So
that game.
do you like the game?
I do. I love the game. It's right now. So it reminds me of like NES or Super NES games. Like I think you mentioned this too. Like Chrono Trigger. It reminds me a lot of that style game.
Yes.
And I love, like, if somebody would ask me what's your favorite type of game, I would say RPGs, but I haven't like really got hooked into one until this one in a long time. So yeah, I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, it's really well executed too. It is a good game.
Yeah. And the thing I like about it too is that it's like it's not as complicated as a lot of JRPGs out there. So it's really easy to get into from like people have never played like JRPGs before. So yeah.
They do start like layering shit on top of it though. Did you get any of the jobs yet? Like,
No.
those skills?
No,
Yeah.
I haven't yet. That's my next thing. I need to get a healer. I need to get healing abilities because like I keep dying. So cool. Christian, what have you been playing?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, I'm playing a lot of Far Cry 5. I'm almost finished with it. I'm in the ending moments of it, but so far I'm really liking it. Have any of you guys played Far Cry 5? I'm curious.
Yeah, I did. I actually did one of the games I didn't stick with because I didn't like the way they tackled the co-op. I was looking to play with somebody, and it wasn't hop in, hop out co-op. It pretty much was assigned only to the person hosting, and I sort of lost interest that way because alone I was just finding a little boring. But the world was beautiful, and I loved exploring it. I'm still glad I played.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's with a lot of Ubisoft games. I've kind of played the past entries, so I almost feel like an obligation to just keep on going. So I played through Far Cry's 1 through 4 and Primal, and Far Cry 5 so far. I'm enjoying it quite a bit more than I enjoyed Primal for sure, and I'm also enjoying it more than I enjoyed 4. But I think that's mostly because of the setting, because it's rural America, and I mean, if it's America, I'll probably inherently enjoy it more. That's how it was with Assassin's Creed 3. It took place in America, so I liked it. But Far Cry 5, it's hitting me in a good spot. I recently just played through a few other open world games. I played through Shadow of War, which was okay, and I played through Watch Dogs 2, which was pretty good. But Far Cry 5 being a first-person shooter is something that just kind of clicks with me a little more and something that I just intrinsically like a little better. And It's interesting because the jump from Far Cry 4 to 5 is definitely more pronounced than the jump from like 3 to 4. Because from 2 to 3, they definitely got their formula down pat with Far Cry 3, and they kind of knew where they wanted to go moving forward. And so Far Cry 5 is very much like that Far Cry 3 experience with things bolted on. But they got rid of the mini-map, which is interesting because they kind of emphasize more just like visually looking at things instead of trying to pick out icons on a mini-map, which is something that a lot of open world games are harping on more and more these days. And there's these prepper stashes, which I enjoy a lot because they're these fun little like bite-sized side quests that you
puzzles.
Can do.
I liked
really
those. Quick. That was what I liked best. Yeah.
Yeah, I do enjoy those a lot, and they reward you nicely too because they give you these perk points, which is how you level up now. Instead of prior entries where every kill you'd get or everything you'd do, you'd get this like little experience, and that would like bump up the bar a little bit each time. But that led to kind of an awkward end game where if you did everything and you weren't the max level, you'd kind of just walk around looking for stray enemies. Whereas this time, like, the perk points feel like actual tangible collectibles that feel like there's a finite number of them, so you could feasibly get them all without having that awkward endgame situation going on. And the map I enjoy because it's kind of quality over quantity, which is something that I definitely am in favor of because I hate those tick marks on the back of the box, like 10 times bigger than our most recent map or whatever.
John calls them GTA clones on our show. He says basically anything with a map and waypoints, it's a GTA clone.
It is a GTA clone.
Yeah,
so
okay.
did you try any of the expansion content?
No, I haven't. I've heard decent things about them, but lately I just picked up the base game, so I've been diving into that.
Right.
But another thing that I've been playing on it
I played the Vietnam one, and I think I got panned, but I actually enjoyed it.
Oh, really? Fascinating.
Is it good? I mean, it's pretty good.
I liked it. I mean, I finished it in like 3 hours or whatever it was. But I love the premise of it because you were basically a POW, and you needed to get to the extraction point. That's the whole thing. And you're basically just
it's like Rambo 2, I think.
Yeah, you're just traveling across this Vietnam countryside, and I thought it looked really good, and I had a lot of fun. And you get to the end at the extraction point, and it goes fucking batshit crazy with like with all these VC coming out of the woods, and they're sending helicopters. It was totally like Rambo, right?
Wow.
And you're just like waiting for you're trying to clear out all the bad guys and the tanks and the jeeps and the helicopters so the UEs can land and pick you up, and it was, I don't know, it was kind of worth the time I put into it. And I guess the new one now is Mars, and that's also getting panned, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I like space stuff, so I'm kind of eyeing it.
Are you getting it?
I don't know. I'm saying I'm kind of eyeing it.
Oh, I thought you said you're kind of buying it.
Oh, no.
That's what I thought you said, too.
Well, I mean, you can't kind of buy something. I mean, John does.
I thought you were kind of buying the premise.
Well, you kind of bought Captain Toad twice on Amazon last week, so.
I did.
He orders the same game twice.
Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon was awesome. I feel like they're trying to kind of recapture that magic with these standalone DLCs.
Yeah, well, I mean, they've always felt like they could do whatever they want with this brand, right? You know, so what? Have fun with it.
Have fun with it. Just don't look for your politics there, right?
Yeah.
Have you been playing that? Saying, geez, I wish they'd sit me down and give me a lecture on guns? Probably. Because how am I going to kill all the bad guys out there? Am I supposed to throw rocks at them? I don't know.
But yeah, having fun with it is something that they definitely do with the multiplayer, which I get a lot of trophies, so I had to play by obligation because of like 5 multiplayer trophies. I had to play it for like 10 hours. But I ended up really enjoying it because it kind of harkens back to Far Cry 2's multiplayer, which was very customizable, very strangely so, because that game was largely single player. But every game in that era had to have a multiplayer component because they didn't want people selling them back or whatever. So
right, and the map maker was a big part in the beginning.
Yeah, and it's pretty impressive. It's very obviously not built for PvP competitive stuff because there's like no hit markers, and when you kill someone you kind of have to look at the kill feed, or there's just like this text across your screen. It doesn't have, you know, the flash or flare of the Call of Duty multiplayer does, but there's lots of customizability. They give you a lot of cool tools. Like there's one map that's like dodgeball. There's a map where you're a bunch of toy soldiers running around a bedroom. It's a lot of fun.
Wow. Yeah, Christians are trophy hunter on our team.
Yeah, we have one of those.
Yeah.
Matt's a bit like that, yeah.
Yeah, but hopefully I'll have all the trophies by the end of the week.
Wow.
Yeah, the Far Cry multiplayer, I played it a couple times. I can't stand the frame rate though, even on Xbox One X.
Yeah,
it's not very smooth and fluid like compared to like Call of Duty or something.
Yeah, there's definitely some maps where they have a lot of waterfalls and water physics going on, and that's clearly not what the engine handles well, especially on consoles. So yeah, the frame rate will tank bad in those portions.
What are you playing that on, Christian?
I'm playing it on PS4 Pro. I'm sorry, I should have mentioned that. Yep.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, so I've gotten to the point where I'm okay with 30 frames. I wasn't at one point, but because of trophies, I've kind of gotten okay with 30 frames per second.
Yeah,
I
think it's bad. It's like the first thing I noticed when I played the multiplayer. I'm like, the reticule's just fucking jumping all over the place.
Especially now because I have two monitors. One's 165 hertz, and now when I go to my 100 hertz monitor, I'm like, I don't know if I can do this, but it's ultra wide, so I put up with it. And it's like, John, you said you can't go to console now sometimes with certain games because you're like,
Yeah, I feel like Call of Duty is like the only one doing it right, and even Battlefield 4.
There's ways to do it, like you said. Just don't do the beautiful waterfalls with everything else you're trying to do, because it's not worth the compromise for a shooter, I think.
Yeah.
I think first-person shooters have to be 60 frames per second locked in, at least.
Yeah, when you're going from a 60-frame game to a 30-frame game, that's where it's really tough.
Yeah, it is. And that's how I felt with Zelda, too. It was 24 at a certain time, and I know it's not a shooter, but the stuttering and the chopping, that's why I would love to see a Switch Pro.
Yeah.
Because for me, it actually did kind of ruin my gameplay experience a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get back to a time where 60 frames is the norm.
Yeah, why are we going backwards?
We are going backwards.
It's a good point.
It's because of resolution now. Now it's like they're trying to do the 4K.
Yeah.
And they want that.
Or Nintendo's trying to do this, 900p.
Right.
Because that's what Zelda was docked. And they couldn't hit 30 frames per second. It's a mobile chip, which is weaker than my phone.
That's what it is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think Sony and Microsoft, the situation they're stuck in is the 4K.
You're right. We're going backwards, though, which is a shame.
It's like, well, we want to do 4K. We want to say we can do 4K, but we have to tone it down a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, Far Cry 5 is it for me.
Okay. Nice. And Ben, what have you been playing?
Well, so I've been traveling a lot with the family. So
wait,
one day
is this an excuse? I don't know.
Yeah, no.
You have a Switch, man. What?
This is great. I know. I haven't even got to play it, but listen, I was watching. The kids were playing on my phone for a little bit because they like to take my phone because they can do that real quick. I don't know how a 10-year-old can do that fast, but next thing I know, she's like, Daddy, come here. I got something to show you on the phone. I'm looking, and have you heard of the game Granny?
No.
Okay.
I've not, but you may want to get a password on your phone.
So I was like, what are you doing on my phone? Get my phone. And I'm like, what is this game? It's a jump scare game.
Oh.
And I'm playing this, like, what are you going to do? And this old woman with a, knife comes around the corner. And and I go, oh, my God. I'm addicted to that stupid game now.
What?
Granny. So when I'm on the road, I'm like,
it must be. I'm looking at Google Play. It's got 1 million ratings.
Dude, popular. Crazy.
1 million. It's at 4.5 stars.
There's YouTube videos on it. I'm like,
is this like the Freddy game?
Yes, it's like that. Yeah.
Wait.
Five Nights at Freddy's.
Wait.
Yeah.
Yep.
Ben, so you went and bought a Switch. You went and got
know.
Mario.
So today,
This is what you're playing?
I'm going to sit down and play it today.
Okay, what are you
See,
playing
this
today?
is why I think the Switch is in trouble, because you've got mobile phones getting games like Granny.
I mean, a game that's got 1 million ratings, and at 4, there's a lot of people playing that shit.
I know.
Don't start, because, I mean, it's funny, because you this is so stupid. But then you start playing it, and you're like, why am I playing this? I love being jump scared.
Yeah.
I love it. I know.
Well, yeah, those janky horror games used to be a dime a dozen back when Slender or whatever picked up Steam. But I think being on a phone, that'll probably entice a lot of people to just download it.
Pre-installed user base of everybody, right?
Yeah, you give it to their mom and watch them freak out when something happens.
And you can play that shit in your room and shut the door, and no one knows.
I mean, if that's what you want to do.
I'm saying if you're a kid.
Kind of creepy. Go under your blanket with your phone and ignore the knocks on the door.
10 million plus installs just on Android.
Yep.
Jeez.
Oh my gosh. Okay, Ben, that's interesting. Quality gaming there, Ben.
Granny, we love you because you are a jump scare game.
That's not the theme song. You just made that up, didn't you? Although you should write a theme song for them. All right, so I've been playing Octopath Traveler, so I'm enjoying that, and I've also picked up this other game called Galactic Z, which is kind of weird because it's on the Switch, but it's also a mobile game too, and there is aspects of mobile on this where I don't like, where it's like, oh, like the time aspects, right? Where like if you lose all your health, you have to wait 24 hours, or you can buy.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I haven't dropped any money on it though.
What is it? Galactic Z?
It's free on the Switch too?
Yeah, it's free on the Switch.
Okay.
They were gonna charge $9.99 for it. It was originally a PS4 game, and it was completely different on the PS4. It was like mission based. I mean, this game has missions too, but I mean, didn't have mobile aspects to it. And now they brought it to the Switch. They also brought it to the mobile on the phones as well, and it's I don't know, I'm kind of addicted to it though, because it's like, oh, I can just do these bot battles for like 10 minutes and then I just jump into a different game. So I'll just wait every 3 hours and do whatever missions I can do.
It's a shame that they didn't charge $10 and then just get rid of all that free-to-play stuff, because what worries me is that the Switch in the future is just going to become, and we're going to talk about this, John, this week on our show, it's a dumping ground now for basically all these indie games and now all these mobile games, and you're losing sort of the soul of what it should be, which is good Nintendo stuff.
Yeah. And did you hear Nintendo? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, John.
No, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, did you hear Nintendo said that they want to bring out 20 to 30 Nintendo or indie games a month? Yeah.
Yes, I mean the new president too has said that he wants to embrace the mobile space.
Well, that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah. So there's
crazy.
It used to feel like what was in the Nintendo eShop was a little more curated.
Yeah.
Yeah, you said that. You're like, oh, I find games there and not on Steam because they're curated, but it's not going to last, I think.
It's right, and the thing is, so now it's going to be all this white noise, and we have to only hope that the cream will rise to the top.
Yes.
And Nintendo really needs to really redo the store so the right stuff's featured and you can discover things a lot easier. Because right now it's just a giant fucking list.
Yeah.
You know, there's no rhyme or reason to it. And if that many games are coming out, there's going to be a lot of good stuff that's just lost in the shuffle.
Yep. Well, that does it for this episode. I want to thank our guests, John and Michelle from the Video Game Outsiders podcast. It was a real pleasure having them on the show. And go out and check them out. You can go out to their website, www.videogameoutsiders.com. And there you can actually download the app where you can hear all their podcasts, all their episodes. You can also follow them on Twitter. Michelle's Twitter account is @CoastalMichelle, and John's is BlackDog7, BLKDOG, the number 7. So follow them on Twitter. You can also follow their podcast as well, and that's VGO Podcast on Twitter as well. So I want to thank them again for being on the show. You can also follow us on Twitter. You can find us at GamerHeadsPC. You can email us at GamerHeadsPodcast@gmail.com. And you can also find us on Facebook at Facebook.com/GamerHeadsPodcast. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. Next week, we have another special guest, so stay tuned for that. Until then, GamerHeads out.
I'm gonna grab a beer.
Oh boy.
Oh boy. This is where the podcast falls apart. That's why you couldn't sign in. That's why he couldn't. That's why you couldn't sign into Skype, because you were too drunk to figure it out.
I was hammered.
Yeah.
Don't judge me, guys.
Totally adding that to another podcast, by the way, Ben.